Listen to the latest Premier League news, updates and match reports now. Just ask Open Sport Social.
Welcome back to the podcast. This is Football Social Daily from Sports Social, daily Premier League podcasts every single day of the season. So make sure you hit the subscribe button and that way you won't ever miss an episode. On today's show, we've been talking about the Premier League table and how strange it looks after 8 games. But things look pretty similar if you're a Newcastle United fan, because it seems they're always stuck like Groundhog Day in the middle of the table. Well, they didn't perform particularly well on Friday night against Southampton. Southampton won and took them top of the league briefly. They're now currently 4th in the top flight table. But as for Newcastle, well, things aren't exactly going too great over at St James's Park, at least from a supporter's perspective. And of course, we've got our very own Newcastle supporter here on Football Social Daily, Marley Anderson. I know you've been waiting to get stuck into Steve Bruce for the last 4 or 5 days now. You've reached boiling point. The floor is yours, my friend.
I think he's doing all right, actually. Lol, just kidding. Right, my issue is, right, the people might be looking at the table and going, well, Newcastle are 13th. What do you expect? Do you expect more from that? And the answer is 13th is not really that much of an issue with that position. It's the way we're doing it, and the way we're going about it, and the way the league table looks below us. We've got Man United one point below us, and they've already battered us this season. So it's clear that they're going to get better. They've even got a game in hand. So they're, for all intents and purposes, we're practically 14th. Again, that's not that much of an issue. But Leeds are much better team than us, 100%. So they're going to go up above us. And then, as we talked about just before the break, you're down there with Brighton, Fulham, West Brom, Burnley and Sheffield United. You're in that mire. And that is not where you want to be as a fan. And while it's okay now, I think not many people in general media are talking about Newcastle because we're not that sort of. It's not that bad on the basis of it. But if you watched us and how we play, it's an abomination. It is awful. It's so bad, honestly. Right, I sat there on Friday night and watched the game. It was on Sky. And you could tell we were going to lose the game because, and this is my biggest issue with Steve Bruce, is the complete level of tactical knowledge that was on show by the two managers. I think Ralph Hasenhüttl has been in charge of Southampton for a couple of years now, and he's always been a manager who's tried to implement a certain style, and he's, if anything, I know you hate Southampton, Niall, but everybody knows how Southampton.
They play better than Newcastle, don't they?
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, 100%. They try and pass the ball on the floor. They try and keep possession. And the most important thing about how Southampton play, the key to how they play, is that they're high pressing, they're high energy. As soon as you get the ball, they will come at you and they will try and pen you in. Now, my biggest issue on Friday was the formation that we've been using for the last too long. But only in previous weeks it's been a 5-4-1, and now it's a 5-3-2, which is worse because of what you're seeing on Friday night. So Southampton, as I said, high pressing. They'll cut as soon as you get the ball. They're going to put pressure on you. So what does Steve Bruce do? He plays Miguel Almiron, who is a number 10 and a creative player. And he asks him to put a shift in a central midfield 3, going box to box, winning the ball back, trying to run us out of trouble and run us up the pitch. That is never going to work against a high-pressing team because he hasn't got the pace. He hasn't got the space to get up to pace and to run at players and to commit them. And he's doing it. If you force him to do it in that area, he's going to lose the ball. It's that simple. He's going to make mistakes. Ward-Prowse and Oriol Romeu in the middle of the Southampton pitch are just going to be on him like a shot because they know what he's going to do, and they know that he's going to take risks because he's that kind of player. He's an attacking flair player. So you've asked him to put a shift in. So there's the one mistake, and what happens 7 minutes in? He does exactly that. He picks up a loose ball from the goalkeeper, in sort of like 25 yards out. He tries to dribble. I mean, he has plenty of chances to smack it clear, but because he's not that type of player. He's not a defender who just wants to stick it in a touch. I know that's what he should have done, but he doesn't do it because he doesn't think that way. And I think, you know, it is an individual mistake, but you can always put an individual mistake down to what conditions he's working under. If you play a guy out of position, he's going to do what comes natural to him, and that comes down to the manager playing him in a midfield three and asking him to do something different to what he's used to. So there's my first issue with it. My second issue is the 5-3-2 in general. Like, you don't need to be a tactical sort of, you know, genius to work out that in a 5-3-2 formation, the only place you can go, the only place you can attack is down the middle, because the only width you've got is at the back. So if you're under pressure and you win the ball back, and your back 3/5 is a back 5 because you haven't got the ball, the only place you can go when you win it immediately is either try and run the entire way down the wing, past the right midfielder and the right back, or a left back and a left midfielder. You can either try and run the ball 70, 80 yards and get up the pitch, which obviously isn't going to happen. Or number two, you can smack it into the middle of the pitch, and you can even try and build possession from the back. But what you do is you're always going to pass it into the middle of the pitch where your midfield three is. And as I said before, Southampton press so highly and so aggressively that as soon as they get the ball, they're going to be faced with a problem. And that's what happened for our second goal. For Southampton's second goal that we conceded, because Sean Longstaff picked it up on the edge of his own box. He went to kick it, and this is, I swear to God, it's barely even a mistake by Longstaff, because he tries to kick it and then he looks up and he realises that Romeu and Ward-Prowse are stood in front of Wilson and St. Maximin, so there literally isn't a pass on. And then he stops and thinks, I'm not going to give it away. I'll try and, I'll reset and I'll try and pick a different pass. And he hasn't got the time because the press is so high and so good from Southampton that they nick it off him and Stuart Armstrong scores and it's 2-0 and it's game over. I mean, we could have lost that game 6 or 7-0. But Darlow had a pretty good game in goal. He's one of the brighter sparks of our season. But the stats back it up. I mean, we're
yeah. So what are you, top of the shots conceded league, aren't you? Top of the shots on target conceded.
Yeah. Lowest
top of
possession.
Most saves made.
Yeah.
Lowest possession in the league.
Yeah. No one's had. I think pass completion's pretty poor as well. But for me, everything can be linked back to the decisions that Bruce is making. You've put Almiron out there to fail. Jeff Hendricks playing centre midfield, where I know he can do that, and he's done it for Ireland. He's done it a little bit for Burnley, but when Isaac Hayden's sat on the bench and he's a ball-winning midfielder and he's not getting into a defensive team, at the minute I know he struggled with a little bit of an injury, but it's depressing to watch because he refuses to change his system because we keep grinding out results, and it's luck. I mean, we were shocking against Wolves. We barely had a kick, and then we won a free kick, which was just down to Callum Wilson being a clever, experienced striker and deliberately not winning a header against Conor Cody and instead inviting the contact. And he won us the free kick out of Nous and just being a bit clever. And we scored the free kick, and we didn't deserve the win at all. But the 5-3-2 system, Alan St. Maximin as a supporting striker, where he's never played there in his career, so why do you think he can do it now? If you played a different way, he's a winger, he needs space to come and attack players, because if you get him one-on-one, he's going past you and he's creating a chance. That's how good a player he is. And to play this negative way, this five at the back, 3 in midfield and 2 strikers, it just isn't any good. It doesn't work. As I've just said, it's almost like a triangle formation. It's wide at the bottom and then it's narrow at the tip. It just means you can't go up the sides of the pitch. It cuts off the side of the pitch because you've got no players there. So as soon as you get the ball, it's well, where are they going to pass it? Well, down the middle. So the other team will pack the middle of the field, and we're very, very easy to play against. It's annoying because we've got wingers at the club. We've got a squad capable of doing so much better. I mentioned before, Brighton are down there. They haven't got a guy that can score as many goals as Callum Wilson. They haven't got a player that can dribble past players and create chances like St. Maximin. I think their defence is alright, but ours is alright. The goalie's alright, but ours are good.
If Steve Bruce got sacked, he won't, but if he got sacked tomorrow, who would you choose to replace him? I've seen a lot of people suggest Eddie Howe, and I'm just wondering whether that's because you've got Callum Wilson now, you've got Fraser now, and maybe that's the natural link there between him and those players. But if you had to choose someone, obviously we're not talking Pep or Klopp or whatever, we're talking someone who Newcastle could realistically go out and get, because let's not forget you've attracted Rafa Benitez in the past, and you're a massive football club, really. Ring the cliche bell, sleeping giant, I think, personally, with all the history and the fan base and everything. So if you could choose a manager tomorrow to replace Steve Bruce, and maybe even if he finished 15th like Brighton, they sack Chris Hughton and replace him with Graham Potter, but at least the football's more entertaining. I mean, who would you choose?
Well, you've already said him. I would choose Eddie Howe. It's not the fact. It's not his links with Wilson and Fraser. If anything, I think that could possibly hinder his move, because he fell out with Fraser clearly at the end of his time there, because Fraser refused to sign the contract extension. So there might even be a bit of bad blood there. But with the way he plays football, I would definitely go for him. He's out of work. He's not going to cost that much. Bournemouth can't have paid him too much. I'm assuming he would get a handy, nice little pay increase from what he was last on down there. I think he's been linked with the Celtic job, which kind of worries me if Neil Lennon goes, because he would be the one I would want. I think we've got the players to play a possession-based game and have more than 30% possession, because it's depressing to see us like get the ball and then go, gosh, what do we do with this? Like let's try and give it to Alan, see what he can do. And St. Maximin gets it, and there's two players on him, and that's it. He's probably going to get tackled or fouled or stopped before he gets into a dangerous area, which is the issue for me. I think there's a simple way to play. Just play your back four. Play Almiron as a number 10. We signed him from Atlanta United. He'd made like every appearance as a number 10. He's barely played there for us since signing, really. He always gets shafted out to a wing or given a sort of a freer role. Play him as your number 10. Say St. Maximin, which wing do you want to play on? And then if he says left, play him left. If he plays right, play him right. Play Fraser on the other wing. Have Hayden protecting with Longstaff behind him, and play Callum Wilson up front, and he'll get you the goals. He's never tried that team. He's never tried this, what on paper would be our strongest team. He's messing around with this back five formation, and then says, well, the players can't. The players aren't used to playing a back four. I want to play a back four, but the players aren't used to it, and it's to a point where if you've got to be stronger as a manager. For me, you've got to say, well, I'm the manager. We should play a back four where we want to have more possession. We want to actually go and try and win games, because our centre backs aren't strong enough. It's not as if we're not conceding any goals at all, and everything's ending 0-0 because our defence is amazing, but we're not getting it to our attackers quick enough. We're doing the worst thing. We're conceding goals and we're not scoring them. So there's clearly not an issue. There's not a case there for a back five. So Bruce, I could go on about Bruce. Jesus wept. He then comes out and says, well, we didn't. This is another thing that winds me up, man. He says we weren't determined enough and we didn't want it. And you can't win a game through just determination, because if you're a right wing back and you've got, that's a bad example. So let's say you're a left wing back on Friday, you're Jamal Lewis, and you've got Kyle Walker-Peters, Theo Walcott, and Stuart Armstrong to deal with on your flank alone. How much determination do you have to cope with two players, at least two players, sometimes three? It just doesn't work. You can be as most, I could be really, really determined to lift a car, but I can't lift a car because I'm not strong enough. It doesn't work like that, Steve. It's not on determination. It's not on how hard you try to do something. Sometimes it's tactics and you simply haven't got them.
So if you were to describe Steve Bruce in one word, what word would you use? We've got a bleep button.
Inept. Out of his depth.
If you were in charge of Newcastle right now, Marley, would you sack him today? Because you spoke very negative about him there, and I don't think he's as bad as maybe you made out. But if you were the owner or the CEO of Newcastle, would you sack Steve Bruce right now?
I would, yeah, but it's because I mean, this is another issue with Newcastle. We're never going to do that because it has to get really, really bad before any decisions are made. It has to threaten to affect us financially, which basically means we need to be in a relegation fight before anything happens, because our board is made up of businessmen and our board is made up of no one with a sort of sporting background. We haven't got a director of football or a sporting chief executive. We sign players on financial... the financial sort of deal that we can do, whether we can get a bargain and flip him for a profit, and it's very rare that we go and sign players that can make an instant impact. And you could argue we've done that this season with Wilson and with Fraser, and then you see how Steve Bruce is playing him, and it's almost like, you know, you can say, well, you wanted these players and we're still playing very negative, and why don't you go and give them a chance to actually succeed? I think Wilson's punching way above his weight in terms of what he's given the team, and now he's gone down with a hamstring injury, which, you know, you can even understand how he got that injury, because he stood there up front for 15-20 minutes doing nothing, and then finally a ball comes up to him that he can chase, and he goes and chases it, and his hamstring goes. It's probably because he's cold. His muscles have gone cold. He's not been moving. He's not been involved in the game for 15-20 minutes. And then you ask an explosive player with a lot of pace to go and chase something down, and ping, his hamstring goes, and he could be out for a couple of weeks, a month maybe. So even then, you know, the one bright spark of our season has just been sort of on, basically.
So, I mean, the next question I would ask you then is, if you would sack him, if you were in charge and you would sack him today, does his season last season not count for anything? Because he's not had much money to spend. I know you mentioned the club wait until, you know, it affects them financially before they make decisions. That's because Mike Ashley typically is, you know, a bit of a penny pincher, I suppose. He's not had too much money to work with. And if you talk about net spend, obviously you lost Perez last season, and you finished, maybe, was it mid-table, about 11th or 12th last season, something? So does that not stand for anything for Steve Bruce?
I think expectations have to be, you know, you've got to try and improve year on year. I think our last three points totals have been 45, 44, and then 44 again. And there was a point last season, just post-lockdown, where we played a slightly more adventurous formation, and it was the super brave 4-2-3-1 formation. I think we won 3 or 4 games on the spin. And then it was a top 6 team, it might have been Spurs, and we went back to a back 5 and we just went into our shells and never played anything different. But at the end of that little winning run of playing sort of slightly more adventurously, we were 11th and 4 points off 8th or something like that. So it was like, it's one of them things where the table is that tight towards the end of the season that if you have a go and you be brave, you can you know, you don't know where you can end up, because teams are clambering all over each other. And Bruce doesn't do that. Bruce doesn't he doesn't take the chance. He doesn't back himself. He just sort of says, well, you know, the players like playing a back 5. Well, sort what the players think. You're the manager. Try grow a backbone and try and implement a style. I look at Ralph Hasenhüttl with jealousy, because he's a guy who's came in, and despite getting, you know, hammered every now and again in his first first few months, couple of seasons, you know, we talk about the 9-0 all the time, but he's always wanted to play that style, and he's always wanted to get to a solid plan. And once the players got up to speed with him, you're seeing what Southampton is doing now. And why can't a team like Newcastle, who I would still argue are a bigger club than Southampton,
don't need to argue that.
But, you know, why can't we have a manager like that? It's, you know, it's not impossible.
I massively understand your frustrations, Marley, and I'm sure there's loads of Newcastle United supporters out there that feel exactly the same way. If you agree or disagree with Marley, perhaps you're another Toon fan who has a different point of view and you're backing Steve Bruce, send us a message on social media at The Sports Social on Twitter. It's Sports Social Official on Instagram, and you can find us on Facebook as well. But time to divert attentions away from the northeast and down to Birmingham, where Aston Villa are our featured club in Floodlight Focus. We'll be speaking to Dan Wiseman from the Villa podcast next.
Football Social Daily. Find more great sport at sport-social.co.uk.